right, you're listening to Empty the Bench, episode number 70. I'm Tom Albano, along with Nick Federa and Nick Morrison. As always, gentlemen, a good afternoon to you. A lot of news that's going on in the world. Like, we had a busy week already, but more news just coming out of the wazoo today. First, I guess let's just very quickly, because we have a lot to talk about today. So it looks like our Super Bowl matchup is going to be the Bucs versus the Chiefs. Buccaneers ended up beating the Packers in a highly competitive NFC title game, and then Bills put up a spirited effort, but the Chiefs are they are the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, but
I mean, as far as that game goes, I don't think anybody was expecting the Bills to actually pull that off. I do think they will be back, though.
Yes, absolutely, they will.
As far as the Bucs go, I mean, you can play like absolute trash and still win a championship game if Aaron Rodgers was that much worse, I guess.
By the way, can we talk about Aaron Rodgers though for a second? Can we talk about Aaron Rodgers for a second and the comments that he made? Because I just thought that was really bizarre after the game in the post-game show that he just decided, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I just don't know.
We made the decision we made, which if I put on my X-ray specs and actually look at the situation from the inside out, it really seems like he wants to choke the life out of Matt LaFleur.
For those of you who don't understand the context, there was a one-possession game. It was third down. Rodgers ended up throwing an incomplete pass to Aquarius. What's his name? St. Brown.
Yeah, St. Brown.
Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce his first name, and I don't care right now. They go. So it wasn't even a bad pass. They caught it, and St. Brown dropped it. So you would figure maybe try again. Go for it on fourth down. No, for whatever reason, Matt LaFleur decides, in his infinite wisdom, to pull the offensive unit, which has the MVP probably of this season, Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and a hell of a pass catcher in Devontae Adams. And like I said, he has other pass catchers in St. Brown and Lazard. And kick a field goal to get guaranteed 3 points and risk an onside kick, which, by the way, if you look at the stats, onside kick success this season.
0.
There's been a couple of the successes, but it's been at an all-time low.
None to justify taking that kind of risk.
Yeah, but that has to do with the new rule that you can't get a head start on an onside kick anymore.
But because of the rule now, you shouldn't do that.
But again, you have the MVP probably of this season. Why are you kicking it? And it's a one possession game. You don't have exactly a lot of time to go back down the field. That was a terrible. We could debate all you want about that jersey pull, the pass interference on King towards the end of the game, and the theory of let them play it out. But that play made, that penalty that everyone's debating about, and Tom Brady, another controversy, probably does not happen if you decide, to go for it on freaking fourth down.
Which is why I said he probably wants to choke the life out of Matt LaFleur. But
yes.
It just seems like sabotage.
Yeah, but the two of them have had issues. The two of them have had issues from the time that Matt LaFleur has stepped in. Aaron Rodgers had problems with McCarthy towards the end of his tenure. Now he's having a problem with LaFleur in his tenure.
Well, the thing is, if there were any problems, they seem to have been swept under the rug with how successful the Packers had been this season. They were the number one seed in the NFC, for crying out loud.
But until the bugaboo rears its head once again.
Absolutely. But absolutely. That's the whole thing. What is this now? Like 3 times in the last 5 seasons, the Packers reached the NFC title game and they lose,
and they didn't get it. I mean, there's a certain amount of. I think there's some issues that need to be worked out, and I don't think it's Aaron Rodgers. I think he's crying out for. I don't think he'd go so far as to leave the Packers as you know.
Oh, I think he would.
It's tough because you have to consider the situation that the Packers don't and their management don't want to spend the money. I mean, when you consider the fact that they didn't really bring in too many weapons for him. Like, they didn't draft another weapon. They drafted his potential replacement in Jordan Love, and then they drafted A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon, by the way, a running back, which kind of scares me because especially when you also consider there was a whole controversy at the trade deadline when the Packers were looking to probably get Will Fuller from the Texans, but then they're like, oh, the cap. So now you might be going into an offseason where, let's face it, they might lose Aaron Jones.
Well, let me make one comparison here. This whole Aaron Rodgers situation is now turning into the Brett Favre situation that the Packers had to deal with way back when, where Brett Favre was afraid of the guy behind him and Aaron Rodgers, who became the star of the organization. Now Aaron Rodgers is under threat, even though he's still having his MVP year.
I was going to say, which is the problem, because it's not like they drafted Love after a terrible season from Rodgers. It was after a rebound, one of his best seasons, and now he just had an MVP season.
And so that's what's confusing.
So what is the goddamn problem? Is really the issue here, and I think it lies with the Packers, not with Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I think this has to do more with not going to a Super Bowl, because Aaron Rodgers has the high expectations, and the Packers have the high expectations of going back to the Super Bowl, and they haven't returned for quite a few years. And when
they can't get over the hump,
right? And remember how we talk about in the NBA that teams are playoff bound. They're good teams, like the Houston Rockets. We talk about this all the time. The Rockets can make it to the championship round, but they can't make it to the NBA Finals, all because James Harden is a regular season player, not a postseason player. But that's not the issue here. Aaron Rodgers is a really good postseason.
They have a regular season management,
right? But like I said, Aaron Rodgers is a really good postseason quarterback. They just can't get over the hump because the team doesn't play together as a unit.
I'm still excited though. I'm still excited though for this big Super Bowl game. I mean, you got the young guard against the old guard in Mahomes and Brady, and you've got probably, like they say, the Super Bowl team should be the best. A great defense and a balanced out offense. Like that's what we're getting here. I mean, both teams have offensive stars. You got Tyreek Hill, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Le'Veon Bell, Travis Kelce. On one side, and on the other side, you've got Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski.
They're stacked.
And then on the defense, let's see, Frank Clark, Tyrann Mathieu, Devin White, Sue, JPP. This is going to be a pretty epic game. There should be some high expectations for this game.
I mean, you say that, but watch, it'll be like Super Bowl 45 in New York.
Well,
God.
And the one ironic thing that I'm sure a lot of people are not referring to, obviously the game being in Tampa Bay at Raymond James Stadium, which is
the very first time.
Historically, a home field advantage game in the Super Bowl.
And it actually is a legit home field advantage. For some reason, I thought they were going to be the road team, but because they had the worst record, but I forgot the NFL doesn't do that. They swap the conference.
But does it really matter who? There's really no home field.
You're right. There never really is for the Super Bowl. This is the first time. This is the first time we're experiencing something.
But I meant in general, like fans who go to the game, which are not going to be very many. I think they said there's going to be like 14,000 fans, and half are going to be responders. So
20
vaccinated first responders.
I'd say it's about 22,000, give or take. 7,500 of which are going to be the vaccinated first responders. So really only 75%, maybe even less, are going to be for actual fans.
Yeah, essentially. And you know what? I'm kind of tired of seeing Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. It's getting kind of boring at this point. Where I want to see I just want to see young quarterbacks. I want to see fresh young blood in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but you know what else? Just to wrap things up here, I think this makes it official, doesn't it? Who was responsible for that success in New England?
Yeah, Brady wears the pants. I think we pretty much.
I think we might actually be overrating Bill Belichick. I'm going to be completely honest with you.
Well,
I mean, I'm just as shocked by it as you are, but you know what? This is what became apparent.
Well, Bill Belichick is just one of those guys where everyone over amplified his actual intelligence and smarts as being a coach. But
we call that the Eric Mangini effect.
Well, yeah, but there's one thing, and people deny this every single day. Oh, it's the coach. It's the coach that really runs the team. Well, newsflash, the quarterback is the most important position, not the head coach of the team. So Tom Brady is steering that ship regardless of what Bill Belichick is doing.
All right. So now moving on here we got a little bit of breaking news to talk about here. So there is obviously we know the situation with the Texans, Deshaun Watson, how much of a headache that is. Deshaun, does he have the leverage? Does he not? Do the Texans want to trade back into the first round?
That situation is a mess.
That situation's a mess, but now I had made a claim on this show very recently that probably J.J. Watt would be going to Pittsburgh to be with his brothers, because the Texans need to just destroy everything with how they are. Well, it turns out now there is a report from NFL Network. I believe a bunch of people over at the NFL Network.
You posted it earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. Rappaport and a bunch of them. There is a growing belief that J.J. Watt has played his last game with the Houston Texans.
I mean, what is going on with this organization? Because we have a new GM that has basically come out and said we have zero interest in trading Deshaun Watson.
I'll tell you what it is. I will happily tell you what it is.
It's garbage is what it is.
It's because a couple of seasons ago, that team looked prime for success, looked prime to compete with the likes of the Chiefs, of the Ravens, of the Bills in the AFC. You had Deshaun Watson at quarterback. He had the weapon of all weapons in DeAndre Hopkins. And I mean, he still has some decent weapons like Fuller, Cooks, but they're not DeAndre Hopkins.
They're not what they were.
Well, right, as soon as they sucked the life out of DeAndre Hopkins, that team was in trouble.
Right. Well, they also had J.J. Watt. Now, J.J. Watt is very injury prone, yes, but at the end of the day, they still had a great defensive unit, and they still have an okay defensive unit, but J.J. Watt was the lifeblood of this team. What you have done between, let's see, Bill O'Brien making that dumb trade, so Deshaun lost what has helped make him such a success early on in his NFL tenure. Bill O'Brien, as much as Bill O'Brien is an idiot, it was an idiot to give him the GM power. He was still that head coach of the team. So let's see, you've lost him, his head coach that he was here with the success. You lost his wide receiver. Now the general manager is completely new, and you never came to him about the hiring process of either the coach or the general manager. So
speaking of the hire, 65-year-old head coach, by the way,
who, by the way, is the same person who was the head coach of one Kansas City Chiefs during the 2014 season. Now, gentlemen, do you know what infamous stat happened that 2014 season in Kansas City?
No.
I feel like that's something I should know, but I don't.
Kansas City wide receivers that season scored a total of 0 touchdowns.
What?
0.
God.
How is that possible?
So I think that Deshaun Watson said he was trying not to tamper, so he said get somebody from the Chiefs, meaning Eric Bieniemy. Really? But it's like, oh, you mean this? See, we have Chiefs at home. See,
but there's one thing I don't get with this whole Texans organization bullshit, which is what it is at this point. So they brought in that PR company to try to help them hire a head coach, and Deshaun Watson has came out and said, I want Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs, and a bunch of other guys. And then he got into it with Bob McNair, the owner of the Texans, and he said, I'm going to talk to you. Well, then he went behind his back and made the coaching hire.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah,
this has been...
But I'm just saying, so you're telling me then, you're questioning why he wants out? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious at this point.
It's pretty obvious that I mean, usually it takes a couple of seasons for a team to collapse like this, but this is what Zig called last week the poop show of all poop shows. It is the poop show of all poop shows. Thank you for that.
That Zig. Was such a great quote, by the way, by Zig last week, that I was like, wow, that's accurate. Where we're dealing with an organization where they basically say, I don't really care what the public thinks of me and how I handle this whole situation. And we're just going to do us. And if it makes us look like assholes, we'll do it anyway.
Pretty much.
I'm sorry. What does that mean?
I'm sorry. I thought this was America.
I'm sorry.
I thought America could do what I wanted.
I'm sorry. Message don't compute.
All right, so let's talk about another big breaking news story. We're going to jump now from football to baseball. We'll come back to football at the end of the show for a very interesting kind of story.
Wait a minute. This is breaking news. We have big baseball news.
Yeah, so as it turns out, there's a new powerhouse in the NL Central, boys, and its name is the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, when I saw this
for a couple of years, but all of a sudden the Cardinals come out of nowhere, so context is necessary.
Yeah, so I see this trade, and I swear to you, like I was hanging out with somebody, and all of a sudden my phone is going off in crazed. Well, because I see you guys chatting, but I also see Twitter going in a spree over that Nolan Aeronado is traded to the Cardinals. And on top of that, the Rockies sent a historical amount of money, $50 million from the Rockies to the Cardinals to make this trade happen.
They're sending like $50 million?
Yes.
Which, oh my God. I mean, granted, it was pretty much a writing on the wall that the Rockies were going to trade either Story or Arenado because they're not going anywhere.
But are the Cardinals competing? Like, I don't even know. They brought back Adam Wainwright, by the way. They brought back Adam Wainwright officially.
Yes, so they brought back Adam Wainwright. They're bringing back Yadier Molina as we speak. I guess this will be his last ride or his second to last ride. He wanted to retire last season, but, the kind of circumstances last season was, I guess he wanted another, time around to say goodbye to the fans. And don't forget, just a couple of seasons ago, even if he may not be the powerhouse that he once was, they still have Paul Goldschmidt over at first base.
Yeah, so...
And Jack Flaherty, probably the rising ace in that National League.
Yeah, and we're going to get into a bunch of other issues with Major League Baseball as well, because the whole DH thing, which I think has to do with some of these star players going to certain organizations, and I find it interesting that he went to a National League organization, actually.
Oh, and the Cardinals, by the way, last season went 30-28. They were second place in the NL Central.
Trust me, their offense has improved 1,000% with Arenado in that ball.
With Arenado, but
and I like when you brought up Trevor Story, Nick, because now that is a big question with all the circumstances going on between the MLB and MLBPA. We don't know what's going on with this season, but the fact that Nolan Aeronado is gone, so maybe this is a chance for Trevor Story to get paid. Does he take a new contract with the Rockies?
I doubt it.
I wouldn't. I mean, I definitely wouldn't.
But when you consider the circumstances of how free agency is now in baseball,
well. There's an issue here that we're not seeing, and I heard it from a lot of the baseball analysts that you just have some teams that just don't give a crap during the pandemic. Like they're not going to spend any money. Look at the Orioles, look at the Rockies, look at Tampa. Even though they won, they're not spending any money. So we're looking at teams that are just, well, we're going to use the pandemic as an excuse, so we're just not going to compete.
I mean, that's one way to do it.
Well, is that wrong?
Technically, no. I mean, if you're being honest about not going anywhere, be honest about it. I mean, don't shake the fan's hand and then punch them in the face with the other.
But wait a minute, this goes back to your point, Nick, about who was it? Was it you had the rant on the Tampa Bay Rays who were not willing to spend the money to, even though they made it all the way to the World Series and then they cut everybody in sight. Would you say though that even on a bad team, like this is totally throwing payroll away from the Rockies standpoint?
The Rockies have been bad for the past couple of seasons, though.
I think it's more than a couple seasons.
With the Tampa Bay Rays, it's like you went to the World Series just a matter of months ago. You should not be trading those pieces away. With the Rockies, I'm pretty sure the writing was, like I said, the writing was on the wall.
But I guess the whole argument, I'm agreeing with you on that point with Tampa, that basically teams are not willing to spend anymore on all-stars because they just don't want to spend the money. And now we're seeing with the pandemic, it's even more of an excuse not to make the payments anymore.
It's even more of an excuse, but it's an excuse that they didn't need, but it's definitely useful.
I just don't understand it. And Nolan Aeronado is 29 years old. I think what is there 6 years on this contract? I think that they traded
something like that.
So basically, the Cardinals it's like signing a free agent without having to actually go out on the market and get it.
I mean, there are worse ways to get a star third baseman. I mean,
what did they trade Do we know what the actual pieces were that they traded?
Yes, but they are only. I think the highest prospect in the deal was their number 9.
See, this is the problem. We talked about this, and Tom, I think you said something about the Padres and Rays trade. Was that the one where basically the Padres got a steal in the sense where they traded no prospect?
Sorry, I'm a little bit out of it right now.
No, but I'm just making the point. You brought that up with who was the star pitcher that was traded to the Padres? The Tampa Ace.
Blake Snell.
When Blake Snell was traded, they basically stole Blake Snell away from the Rays for like crappy prospects.
Ta-da!
So that's what I don't get in this whole situation. I guarantee you they traded Nolan Aeronado just to get the money off the payroll at that point.
Correct. Now I'll try to bring that Rockies Aeronado.
I'm looking for it so you can do something else. But anyway, the way that I just thought this was interesting that the news came out now in this regard. That's what I don't get.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of,
I'm going to drop out for a little bit, guys, so I can look this up. Okay.
Yeah, we don't know when spring training is going to be. So
I'm looking at the story now. I don't think they have the names of the deal yet, but it's interesting the way that this whole thing fell and the way that it's going to affect Major League Baseball. That's what's interesting here, Nick.
I mean, here we thought we were going to have negative baseball news with nobody getting into the hall, but we'll get to that later. But
well, let's get to that now. So since we're talking baseball, I have okay, you got it. So Curt Schilling is in the news, everybody, and it's not good news. So
it never is. I mean, it's with him, it's just diminishing returns. I mean, soon enough you're gonna find out he's created his own autonomous country and taken over this town of Skokie, Illinois.
So let's talk about this. So the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame numbers come out. There's nobody in the 2021 Hall of Fame class.
Yeah, it is a class of 0. So the class of 2020, I guess, which is Jeter and Walker, is going to be the class of 2021 as well.
So for all intents and purposes, that's what they're going to be doing. So,
all right. So by the way, just to go back on the Trevor story, a Nolan Aeronado deal. There are no official details as of yet. Still, I don't understand because the deal still has to be approved by the MLB and the MLBPA.
Oh, because of the money. Yeah.
So, but the possible names that could be going to the Rockies, the possible prospects are left-handed pitcher Austin Gomber, first baseman Lucan Baker, outfielder John Torres, and right-handed pitchers Jake Woodford or right-handed pitcher Angel Rondon.
So it's all speculation at this point.
It is speculation at this point, but
a deal is in. A deal is in.
Yeah, a deal is in. We just don't know what.
I could see this getting rejected, though, because I could see this being an A-Rod situation all over again, where they're trying to move pieces and money, and it doesn't happen. But, all right, let's get...
Rob Manfred really want to do that, though? I don't think so.
Well, Rob Manfred's reputation is 0 at this point. But anyway, so to get back to the Hall of Fame class of 2021... If you go to our Twitter account, by the way, Tom put out a really funny meme about the Hall of Fame.
Is it the Who's Line one with Wayne Brady where it's the class of 2021 and there's nobody in the seats?
Yeah, that one was good. I thought that was really funny. And then the combined one that you did with Steve Cohen and the MLB Hall of Fame, which is a blank picture.
Yeah, because Steve Cohen. We'll get to him. Steve Cohen deleting his Twitter account, but let's get to the other portion of this story, gentlemen. Curt Schilling. So now he's at 71%. There's a chance, depending on how the Hall of Famer writers vote next year and how everything goes, there's still a chance, in his last season next season, he could get back into the Hall of Fame. But then he issues a response, like not even half an hour after he gets rejected from the Hall of Fame.
Before the response, I just want to clear up that he missed the Hall of Fame by 16 votes. That was the big thing. Okay, go ahead.
So, but he then releases a statement, and basically it is something that has never been done, I think, by a Hall of Fame potential player, in which he actually requests to be removed from the ballot.
Which is the most idiotic, ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my life. And I can't remember the guy who's in charge of the Hall of Fame voting came out and basically said,
no,
yeah, you can't do that. That has just about as much sway as me removing myself from the running for Best Supporting Actor.
But I just wanted to make one statement, which is
sorry, no, that was a mistake on my end.
Okay, but I was going to say that it's never happened in the history of Hall of Fame voting that no one has ever been removed from the ballot, ever. So does Curt Schilling really think he has power or clout to do anything? And by the way, I just want to say,
yeah, go ahead.
I'll let you finish, Nick. But Curt Schilling is the biggest political hack in the entire world that lives,
which is saying something considering the political climate that we live in. But considering that Curt Schilling probably his first of all, let me clarify. I've always been of the opinion that being in the Hall of Fame is a privilege, not a right. And you absolutely can get rid of it. You absolutely can by putting your foot in your mouth, or really, I don't even know if this goes past. This might even go past putting your foot in your mouth because supporting an insurrection against the United States government, people used to be hung for that.
Well, the other thing, and I wanted to ask Tom because Tom made this point, and I think last episode actually, that Major League Baseball doesn't look a character, while every other sport looks a character.
Technically, there is a character clause, but it seems like Major League Baseball doesn't consider character as high a priority as, say, the Football Hall of Fame or the Basketball Hall of Fame.
And that's what I don't get. Like in the NBA, as soon as if you're like Gilbert Arenas and Javaris Crittenton of the Wizards, who took guns into the locker room and were gambling in the locker room, bye-bye, Gilbert Arenas, you don't exist anymore. Like Major League Baseball, I take steroids, I do all this other stuff, abuse. I'll give you second chances.
All right, so here's going to be my big point. It's time for Major League Baseball and the Baseball Hall of Fame to come to a consensus of what makes a Hall of Famer. Because we have all these different plateaus, that supposedly are like big benchmarks that are like automatics. Like Curt Schilling has 3,000 strikeouts.
Oh, the plateaus. Yeah.
You would think that's an automatic. Barry Bonds, home run king. You would think that's an automatic. But we have the steroid scandal. Although you have all these theories about what really happened with the steroid era, because there was once upon a time where steroids technically weren't frowned upon.
They weren't illegal.
They weren't frowned upon in MLB.
Right. And that's the problem. Like people were taking HGH like it was candy, like inside the locker rooms. So I just don't get it. Like,
and that just makes next year's vote just that much more. Like this Curt Schilling situation just makes next year's vote even more intense because you're going to have Schilling in his final year.
Clemens,
Bonds and Clemens are going to be in their final years, and they actually didn't make much progress, so they might be dead in the water. A-Rod goes on the ballot for the first time, and Big Papi David Ortiz goes on the ballot for the first time. A-Rod, what's there to say about his controversy that hasn't been said? And Big Papi, you have the 2009 New York Times report, which stated that he tested positive for steroids back in 2003. Now, that never was really technically made official, but that's been a long disputed thing.
I mean, you're going to have to bite the bullet and let either someone gets in or nobody gets in.
If you want me to be honest, if Curt Schilling or David Ortiz get into the Hall of Fame and Alex Rodriguez does not,
that's hypocritical.
And not only is it hypocritical, that is just a damaging blow to a Hall of Fame and to a sport. I will say that far. A sport whose credibility is in the water, whose credibility is drowned.
There's an entire generation of baseball players and baseball fans who don't see their people represented, the people who got them into watching baseball. There's people who were watching baseball because of Sammy Sosa and Rafael Palmeiro and Mark McGwire and
Sammy Sosa
and Curt Schilling.
I mean, I mean, we do have, because this is basically my generation. We do have Derek Jeter in there, Mariano, Ken Griffey Jr. Wait. Derek Jeter, Ken Griffey Jr., Mariano, Mike Piazza. But the problem is, then you deal with another BS controversy of the Hall of Fame of, 100% of the vote, unanimous. One person didn't vote.
Can we just deal with getting into the Hall of Fame and not what your percentage is? Getting into the Hall of Fame is the honor here, not what the percentage is that we're dealing with. And by the way, we're forgetting one more thing if we're going to talk about the PEDs. Does the Mitchell report just go ignored? Like, that's the thing we're forgetting about here.
I mean, that's the problem. I don't know if they're really ignoring it, because they are using that as kind of an excuse to not have.
No, what I mean is that Tom brought up a point about how and you did too, Nick, about how there's a generation of fans who would totally ignore certain aspects of that situation. Well, the Mitchell report was a huge thing. That was 2003. And if you're just going to put some people in from that list and not everybody, it's a hypocritical BS moment if they do it.
And Clemens too. I mean, CC Sabathia made that point. Made that point with on his podcast on R2C2.
And actually, no. Going back to what I was saying, because with the Red Sox, you had David Ortiz and Manny Ramirez named in that 2009 article from the New York Times. They weren't on the Mitchell report when that came out in the mid 2000s. And if you remember Mitchell, I mean, I hate to bring up the conspiracy theory, but Mitchell, what was he? Oh yeah, that's right. He was a director for the Red Sox,
which was ridiculous and stupid, and there's so many things wrong. A bunch of
other things.
Right.
I mean, if you read the books, like I read the books, I read the Radomski book, and I read what's it called?
Juiced.
Well, I read Juiced. I read the Radomski book, and what's the other one? Mark Farawada, the investigative writers, the Bonds book. But I can't.
I know what you're talking about. I know.
But they clearly state that Barry Bonds clearly was using stuff. Giambi was using stuff. Like, that can't go ignored, unfortunately. But to make a long story short, Curt Schilling, if he wants to be off the ballot, take him off the ballot.
Are you talking about Game of Shadows, by the way?
Huh?
Game of Shadows?
Yes, that's it. It's a good book, by the way. If you're looking to understand the whole PED history, then read that book.
All right. So back to my point of baseball's credibility on the water. So, gentlemen, it looks like here we go. I'm fully expecting delays and union and league fights going on. The MLBPA, a report has come out, has rejected the expanded playoff system that was in effect for the 2020 season, as well as the National League using a designated hitter rule. Here we go again.
By the way, if you check out our episodes from 2020, when right at the beginning of the pandemic, I think the three of us called that this whole situation was going to happen, that the MLBPA and Major League Baseball were going to hit the shitter when it came to coming to a deal.
See you in July, folks.
I was going to say, so if you guys remember that Rob Manfred said, we're going to play a full 162 game season. I forget where I read this, but supposedly that was because their theory was that was made after the union supposedly told some of the big free agent guys out there. So that would be like DJ LeMahieu, George Springer, Trevor Bauer, who's still a free agent. Basically, do not settle for less. Get, what you want, get your worth. And I guess Rob Manfred made that statement so that way, to move things along in the process. Well, something like this, gentlemen, is kind of a blow, because here we go again. We're going to be at a point in this country where we are in a pandemic, and you're going to have a millionaires versus billionaires fight for the second year in a row. So you're telling me, with this combined with the issues that the Hall of Fame is having and the controversy and nobody going into the Hall of Fame for the second time in what, like a 10-year span, you're telling me that baseball, that baseball's credibility is drowning.
It's zero. It's zero. There's no credibility at this point. And I think it'll be a good transition to talk about who the newest owner that came into this whole fray.
So much. So, guys, like I said in that tweet, that the meme that Nick was talking about, 1 week you're the most beloved person in New York. The next week, you are being shut on by Dave Portnoy in Barstool.
You are being, and when Dave Portnoy dunks on your ass, it's time to rethink your priorities.
Context is necessary, and I can't believe I'm saying that because I actually understand the whole situation with the market and everything. But Steve Cohen's got to shut his fucking mouth. I'm sorry, but that's my whole opinion on Steve Cohen, Mr. I'm $14.5 billion net worth. I can wipe my ass with a George Washington and not care who is watching me.
I was going to say, what do we want to start with? Do we want to start with that controversy, or do we start earlier in the week with the trade?
Because one leads to the other.
So you're talking about the stock market thing, right?
Well, first let's talk about the Steven Matz one I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
So Steven Matz was officially traded from the
Mets
New York
Jays.
From the Mets to what?
To the Jays.
The Jays, yes. And the Mets got 4 prospects, which basically they weren't blue chippers. They weren't like top 15 as far as I know. It was basically, let's get Matz's contract off our hands.
Well, actually, they tendered him the contract, and I think they purposely were doing that so that they could trade him. That's what I think they were trying to do.
But now there were also reports that the Mets were the only ones who had made an official firm offer to Trevor Bauer. So it kind of led to, 2 + 2 = 4. This was probably going to be the Mets making room for Trevor Bauer. So then later on in the week comes the whole Wall Street bets controversy, in which GameStop and AMC and all their stocks rose against
Nokia, AMC, GameStop. And just to give you an idea, because I follow the stock market, 3 Fridays ago, GameStop was at $18 a share. It is now up over $370 a share. And
mostly because of the Wall Street Bets subreddit decided to screw with the hedge fund firm that was
0.72
to fail.
Right, so 0.72, which is Steve Cohen's hedge fund, who was working with another hedge fund called Melvin Capital, which was, and just to give I have to explain this to people who don't understand the stock market. They were doing what's called shorting GameStop.
Basically rooting for it to fail.
You're gambling that the stock is going to go down. Do you want to take a guess, gentlemen, how much money they were gambling on it to short?
Billions.
$2 billion. $2 billion. And guess what? Like Nick said, when they went off on Reddit and said, we're all going to buy the stock, they tanked Citadel, which is the other company that is involved in the hedge fund, and Melvin Capital. So Steve Cohen had to get involved and say, all right, you guys have been making me money. I'm going to give you more money to, I guess, generously fix this whole situation.
Generously, quote unquote.
And so Dave Portnoy of Barstool gets involved because, Dave loves a good controversy on Twitter. And basically said,
the problem is Dave's actually in the right in this situation.
Oh, no, totally. Yeah. But Dave
which I really didn't think I'd ever say.
So I happen to like Dave for other reasons, not the reasons that you guys dislike him. But I just think he's really good on social media. Like, he knows how to reach his audience to the best of his ability. So he goes off, and we can't see Cohen's tweets anymore because he deleted his Twitter account. And he goes up and says, now I can go back to the Mets. Now I can focus on my situation. And Dave basically says, you should go to jail. You're screwing everybody. But my favorite quote of the tweet was from Steve Cohen. Hey, man, I'm just trying to make a living. Excuse me? You're trying to make a living?
You're trying to make a living?
Excuse me.
You have billions of dollars. Most people would see in 50 lifetimes.
So it just bothered me that a guy who's worth $14.5 billion
trying to make a living.
Hey, man, I'm just trying to make a living.
I'm just a guy who wakes up in my gold-plated bed, sits on my gold-plated toilet, and then tries to put on my gold-plated clothes. Everything is gold-plated when you're worth $14.5 billion. Don't you know that? He's
what I like to call a hedge fund creep, basically, where he just puts money into certain areas of the market and says, all right, Chop chop. What am I making money on today?
And most of that is hypothetical. It's about as real as Monopoly
But
money.
we're missing one more thing here, which is Steve Cohen, who just bought the team from probably the worst owners in all of Major League Baseball in the Wilpons. And now he's putting his team in controversy again.
Oh, you know what? He almost had me fooled there for a couple of weeks. He almost had me fooled that things were going to be different. But you know what? The same old Mets.
I was going to say, gentlemen, there is going to be a acronym for the Mets right now, and that's going to be SOM. Same old Mets.
Hey, you should make a meme out of that, actually.
New era, same old Mets.
That's good. I like that. You should make that into a meme, actually. We're going to put that up later. Anyway, this whole situation is a mess. The Mets have, and actually, Tom, I want you to say this because you were talking about how the Mets have had to deal with issues over the past couple seasons.
I just feel like karma is going to come back to bite this team, and they're going to somehow miss
No,
playoffs.
but they've had to fire people the past couple seasons. Now they're dealing.
So as I say, this is what after the Porter situation. That was the second time in 2 off seasons they had to fire a personnel person before the season even started.
It's bad. It's really bad, and I think that's why. And I think I said this last week or a couple weeks ago. That's why George Springer didn't go to the Mets, because I don't think he wanted to deal with all that situation in New York. But now watch. Steve Cohen is going to obsessively overspend like a drunken sailor now for Trevor Bauer.
Oh, my God.
Sunrise, sunset. You know what? I thought things would be different.
Oh, wait. One last thing. I did a poll. I put it out 12 hours ago just to get an idea of, is it a good move or a bad move by Mets owner Steve Cohen to delete his Twitter account after getting beat up by Dave Portnoy? And the results were in 51 votes. It was 65% bad move, 35% good move.
All right. Well, let's go. Let's wrap things up here, guys. One last story. Like I said, it's back to football, but it's kind of unusual. But I guess this is just an unfortunate sad effect of the COVID-19 pandemic that we've had over the past year and here in America. So there will be no ads. Obviously, Super Bowl 55, Super Bowl, one of the biggest parts of the Super Bowl, of course, is the commercials. Like this year, it's over $5 million for a 30-second commercial.
5.5. Yep.
5.5. Budweiser, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Facebook, among others, will not be producing ads for the Super Bowl this year. Anheuser-Busch, which is the company behind Budweiser, will still put out ads, just it will not represent the Budweiser brand. Pepsi, PepsiCo, there will still be ads for PepsiCo for the snacks and everything. Pepsi, the brand, however, will focus on the halftime show. Obviously, the Weeknd performing this year's halftime show, and halftime show also a big part of the Super Bowl, but no ads itself for Pepsi during the commercials.
I read that part of that was because they wanted to focus the money on the COVID relief. That's part of what I heard.
Well, Anheuser-Busch actually donated all of this ad money that was going to be used for Budweiser to COVID relief funds.
So you think the NFL,
which is a good thing to do.
So you think Roger Goodell will get the hint, and I think you know where I'm going with this, do you think Roger Goodell will get the hint that with the advertisers wanting to spend money towards COVID relief, maybe he should start doing that also?
There's an issue here. And the answer is it should be yes. Will he? No. But the problem is Roger Goodell is sadly becoming not the worst person when it's dealing with the COVID stuff. Adam Silver, Rob Manfred, they're giving him good competition.
Oh, God.
I think I break out in rashes now every time I hear Adam Silver's name.
It hurts me. It really does.
All right. That is going to do it for this edition of Empty the Bench. Make sure to follow us on our social media accounts. You can see them scrolling across the bottom of your screen.
Actually, I have one thing. We do have a confirmed guest for the Super Bowl next week. Danny B is going to come back and do some gambling tips and
gambling advice. Yeah.
So in case you want to lose your shirt, so you can
go ahead and ask Nick, because Nick loves gambling so much.
Don't make me say it. Don't make me say it.
Maybe Danny will give advice, on how to pick the correct color of the Gatorade that's going to be dumped, or how long the national anthem will be.
Or the coin flip, which, by the way, is stupidly obvious 50-50. You just hopefully get lucky. By the way, you do know that's one of the most gambled on things on the Super Bowl, right?
I know. Yeah, I know.
People bet on everything.
No, but I'm just saying that's the most bet on thing I've heard.
That's
or how long the national anthem is, like you said. Like, go ahead and ask Christina Aguilera about that.
Mm-hmm. All right. For Nick Federa, Nick Morgeson, I'm Tom Albano. We'll see you next week. Till then, take care, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.